Sage Intacct does more of accounts payable work than most accounting systems out there, but it still doesn't do three things, which costs your AP team a lot of manual work. Now, after working close to 20 plus years in procurement and working with dozens of finance teams that are using Sage Intacct, I've seen these patterns again and again. Sage Intacct does invoice processing very well in terms of approving invoices, but it doesn't automate the invoice capture process as well as matching of those invoices to those purchase orders. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through a step-by-step framework on how you can automate your accounts payable process in Sage Intacct so that your team is not spending half of their time processing invoices and so that you can close books faster. Let's get into it. So first of all, let's address what Sage Intacct does very well. At the core of it, it handles your core accounts payable processes well, which is entering an invoice into the system and then routing that invoice for any sort of approval and then paying the vendor too. It also handles the ability to pay the vendors by integrating it with your bank for ACH payments or checks or credit cards, and that all is very well managed in Sage. What Sage doesn't do very well is the purchase order process or the purchasing process, which means it is left for your team to match a invoice to any sort of purchase order if it all exists in the system. Now, Sage does offer OCR stands for optical character recognition. In simple words, it's a technology that can read an invoice document and pull the field data or whatever that is. But what it doesn't solve for is the upfront process. When you look at Sage Intacct, purchasing is probably, I would say, one of the weakest spot, and because of which two things happen. Most companies don't use purchasing module within the Sage Intacct, which means you either do not have a purchase order process at all, that means every invoice needs to be reviewed and approved. Or if you do have a purchase order process somehow, maybe it's outside the system, you're using emails or a form to create that, and then that's entered into Sage. So what does it mean for your AP team is now when they receive an invoice, they have to go in and manually match that invoice to the purchase order and then route it for different people for review and approval. The other thing that is lacking in Sage is the invoice capture from the vendors directly. So typically what we see in best of breed applications like ProcureDesk, you do have the ability to get the vendors to submit the invoices using a vendor portal, and that functionality does not exist in Sage as well. Now, all this manual process of inputting an invoice, routing it for approval, paying the vendors, works well when you're approving maybe 50 to 100 invoices a month. But when a company starts scaling and we see the number of invoices inching to 300 and 400 or even 500, this process becomes unmanageable. That is where you start seeing the process breaking, and the simpler solution for many companies is to add more headcount. Right? Have more people to enter invoices into Sage and then track, chase people for approval, send Slack messages, team messages, you name it, and then try to kind of get that invoice approved on time. What that means for you is your books are not getting closed on time because you don't have all the invoices. So with that said, now let's talk about how you can improve that process. Now, before you put any sort of AP automation in front of your team, you have to fix your purchasing process. Most of the AP problems that I see with Sage Intacct actually doesn't start in the AP module. It starts with the purchasing process. And it goes like this, right? People do not have a process up front, which means it's wild west, and you see the invoice and then you try to kind of figure out, okay, I need to now figure out where to code this, who needs to approve this, and AP becomes a detective and they're spending a lot of time doing that. We saw this exact same problem with our customer Metabolon. They're a biotech company based in North Carolina, and they had similar problem. They were using Sage Intacct, but before implementing ProcureDesk, they had pretty much everybody can buy everything, and they had a lot of surprise invoices coming in, which means AP team has to figure out now where this needs to go, and that ends up in a couple of things, right? One is their close process was into 8 to 10 days. Second, the coding was a challenge. They have to continuously reclassify the documents because somebody might have coded it wrong. And third was continuous chase of approvals, always asking people where it is, the invoices, is it approved or not, and so on. My point here is that if you do not fix your purchasing first and you try to automate the AP process, you just have more spend going through the system faster, but you don't have a spend control process. Now, what you do here is you put a structured purchasing process in front of your AP. Now, this is what we designed ProcureDesk for. So let me kind of walk you through what this looks in practice so that you can implement the same for your organization. So it starts with what's called a purchase request process. If I need something, I'll go into the system and put in a request, whether it is I need to buy supplies for office, or I need to buy inventory for running my operations, or if you're a biotech company, you need to buy lab supplies. You always start with a purchase request process. That captures everything the user needs, right? In terms of why they need it, the business justification, and then the system routes it for approval. Now, approvals can be designed based on departments, budgets, finance function needs to review it based on certain criteria, OpEx versus CapEx. You can think of all those different scenarios, but each one then becomes a approval workflow so that the system can now route that request to the right person for approval. So the business justification is already done, right? They've looked at it and then say, okay, this is the right thing you should purchase. And once all that is done, you basically issue a purchase order to the vendor so that now when the invoice comes in, invoice matching is automated. We'll talk about that in a minute. So that's kind of step one, having a purchase request process that captures the need of the business. Number two is making sure the cost is allocated to the right bucket. What you don't want is people putting a single line of, okay, I need a laptop. Okay, but which chart of account it needs to get booked to? Now, Sage Intacct supports dimensions, right? Whether the dimension is project or whether your department, location, if you're a non-profit, you have, whether the grant is restricted or unrestricted, things like that. So what you need to make sure is your purchasing process has all those fields available and you automate it as much as possible so that when a user logs in, they don't have to figure out where exactly this request needs to go. Its system kind of automatically route or code it to the right set of dimensions. So make sure that the system you use has accessibility to all the dimensions that you need in Sage so that your document is coded right from the beginning. The third thing here is you have to make sure that people are able to use the system. So what do I mean by that? A very common scenario we see with many growing companies is they put together a purchase requisition process where employees have to enter the data in a form. So imagine I need to buy some supplies from Amazon. So I need to go to Amazon first, pick up what I want to buy, maybe copy the link, copy the description, put it in a form, then submit the form. It's a very lengthy process. There is a lot of friction in this process. And if you cannot simplify this, you cannot scale it, because all this complexity doesn't scale. And what ends up happening is people stop using the system. So you say, yeah, I put a purchase request process, but people are not following. There's a reason for that. So what we recommend here is make it simple for your end users to use the system. And the way you do that is through punch-out catalogs. A punch-out catalog enables an employee to go to a vendor's website, pick what they want to buy by just clicking a button, and everything else is copied to their shopping cart in the purchasing system like ProcureDesk so that they don't have to copy the data. Now, whether it is you're buying supplies from Amazon, Staples, CDW, Grainger, you name it, there has to be a broad variety of vendors with which your system works so your employees don't have to spend time copy pasting the data. And by the way, if you're running Sage Intacct and you want to see how this process would work inside Sage Intacct, I'm leaving a link at the top of the description. So click on that link to schedule some time to talk to one of our product specialists, and we'll walk you through exactly how this purchasing process can work with your current Sage Intacct implementation. All right, now let's talk about how do you simplify the AP portion of receiving invoices. Now, one of the common challenges we see with most customers is they don't have a central place to capture all the invoices that are coming from the vendors. They might come to an internal stakeholder, they might come to a shared AP box, which has a lot of noise in terms of vendor follow-ups and so on. So the first step you need to do to now make sure your AP is taken care of is have a process which is centralized. Now, you could do it in two ways. First is setting up an email shared AP inbox where all your invoices are coming. It could be AP at your company or invoices at yourcompanyname.com. What that does, it kind of brings in all the information into one single place so you're not chasing invoices at the month end close process. The second thing you need here is AI or OCR to actually pull the invoice information from the document and then create the invoice automatically so that your team is not kind of manually entering the data. So imagine a document comes in, it looks at, oh, okay, this is for this vendor, this is the line amount, this is the quantity, price, taxes, whatever it is. It pulls all that automatically so your team is not, focused on spending time and entering data. Now, point number two is you can further improve the experience overall for all parties involved is using a vendor portal. So a simple way to think about a vendor portal is a vendor goes to a vendor portal where they see all the open purchase orders and they can submit invoices against that. Or if it is a non-peer invoice, they simply upload the invoice along with any supporting document and so on. And that automatically comes to the system, and now the system has the data. So there is no need to send PDFs or emails and so on. Portal makes it all very easy to kind of capture all those invoices in one single place. Now you got all the data, right? You solved the capturing process. And if you do this well, you have solved 40 to 50% of your AP problem. You reduce your time by 40 to 50%. Now we're going to talk about how do you further reduce the time and also close books faster. And that is by automating the matching process. So now you see you have an invoice, you have a purchase order. It doesn't solve the problem unless you automate the matching of the process. So what does it look like? So imagine an invoice shows up, system looks for, oh, it is for this purchase order. Yeah, it already has a receipt created in the system. I can do a three-way match and I can match, okay, what quantity did we order? Did we actually received it? And did we the invoices for the same quantity, right? That's kind of quantity match. The second thing is going to check is the price matching. So if I ordered a widget for $100, did the vendor invoice me 100 or are they invoicing me 110? Those are the things that needs to be considered from a matching standpoint. So if you have an automated matching process, it can do that for you. And what that means is your team is not manually matching each and every invoice. What they're actually doing is now they're reviewing any exceptions that are generated by this process. So an exception looks like, hey, you ordered 10 of these, you received 10 of these, but the vendor is invoicing for 20. So there is something off here. Or the vendor has invoiced it, but we never received it. These are exceptions. You can further automate this process. So rather than your team reviewing it, you can predefine what should happen when a price exception is there. Maybe we need to route it to somebody in procurement to review it. All those things can be managed through an automated matching process. Now, the final step in this whole process is, right now you got your purchasing done, you got your invoice, everything is matched. Now the data needs to go to Sage. Otherwise, your team will spend time manually entering the same data again in Sage Intacct, right? So if you're using a system like ProcureDesk, it is automatically handled for you. Now, the way it kind of works is, imagine now you match the invoice, everything looks fine. The invoice is now sent to Sage, whether it is for a specific purchase order or whether you're just paying standard AP like utility bills, which are without any purchase order. Both those documents will automatically flow into Sage. And along with that, you might have the actual copy of the document, right? So you do not have to come out of Sage, you're within Sage and you can actually see the invoice document. You also want to make sure that the coding that you had on the invoice and the dimensions, everything goes automatically to Sage, including any sort of predefined allocations that you might have in Sage. So all that gets synced automatically, right? So that's kind of step one. Now, once that is done, if you, let's say you're running now payments out of Sage, then you need to make sure that whatever system you're using here, it actually pulls the information for payment from Sage so that when an employee is looking at, hey, was this invoice paid or not, they don't have to go chase AP to find that information. They can go to a system and see, oh, okay, this invoice was paid on this date. We paid this amount, and whether it was paid through ACH or check, all that information can be seen by your employees. The third aspect of integration is like, we talked about sending the invoice, right? And the attachment, pulling the payment information. Third is how do you book your accruals? So having a system like ProcureDesk, you can actually see all your open commitments and what is invoiced, what is yet to be invoiced. And you can simply run a report and kind of either push the accruals directly into Sage, or you can just go and accrue for those expenses manually, right? So those are kind of three things. Now, if you rather have all this done for you and have us go through the entire process on how this will work in Sage Intacct, the purchasing, AP matching, and so on, click on the link below to schedule time with one of our product specialists. In that customized walkthrough, will kind of give you step-by-step process on how, first of all, integration with Sage works, how we pull the list of chart of accounts, suppliers, dimensions, and so on, how the data processed through ProcureDesk, including purchase request process, approvals, purchase orders, and invoice matching, all done within one system, and then how it integrates back and forth in terms of sending the invoice data or pulling payment information and so on. Again, click on the link below to schedule some time with one of our product specialists. And once all that is set up, if you want to figure out how to close your books in 2 days, check this video.